Welcome to Spotcast, Season 3, Episode 10. This week we're talking about Lower Decks season finale of the first season, No Small Parts, which sounds like something on an IMDb database page. Anywho, my name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined, as usual, by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
We're also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Mr. and Mrs. Seattle.
How's it going?
Alrighty. How's your face?
Well, I can speak now, so that's a plus.
Yeah.
I can consume solid food, again, a plus.
What'd you have done?
I had to have a gum graft last week, so I couldn't talk. I sounded like Elmer Fudd for a couple of days there. Sylvester the Cat was more accurate.
Sylvester the Cat?
Yeah, like suffer and succotash. But
will you scream in the middle of the podcast for no reason?
I do not expect so. It's been it was last Tuesday. I was kind of hoping that I'd be able to be a little more eloquent by the time we were ready to record last week, but alas, did not work out that way. So yeah, I had to bail, unfortunately, which is too bad because I really did have a great time listening to you two clowns talk about
screw everything up.
Oh my dear God. There's one part where you're like, I bet you Jonathan is yelling at his phone. I'm like, you bet your ass I'm yelling at my phone.
Yeah, too bad there's only 40 people in the world that would appreciate the humor of that statement. Hi guys.
We do take advantage of the shaking their fists at the podcast sort of thing on the other show, so there's no reason why we couldn't take advantage when we're down a person on this one.
Well, normally what we do is, usually it's Jaime and myself that would pick the content for the other show, and we have one of our ex-hosts is still on our Slack channel, so he we call him out all the time, but he regularly comes in and on the Slack and kind of goes, well, as a matter of fact, I think he did some this week or last week too, right? So yeah, it's lots of fun.
Well, no, you guys, considering that you hadn't really had a chance to go through all the crapola that I put in there, you managed to get through it pretty well.
Jaime was a bit prepared for some of it, but I had no clue. I was like totally cold, right?
Yeah, so. There's one part where you're like, all right, let's click this and see what it says. Like, okay.
Yeah, the charmed next generation thing was like the hardest thing for me to wing it through.
Well, Jaime, you get all the sub references in the world from tonight's episode. Boy,
yeah,
oh boy.
Holy cow! Talk about the right episode to be riffing on, eh?
Yeah, it was challenging. So I said, all right, well, at least the benefit is I don't have to do the season premiere of Discovery, which will probably also be kind of challenging. So
yeah, I think that's me next week. So.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, because I did that. Right,
yeah, because you did last week when I was off, and Jaime's doing tonight, so I'm next week.
Yeah, so I get to just not take any notes and just mentally note anything that I thought was of interest to add color commentary instead of the play-by-play.
Honestly, though, we could talk about this more in the pod, but it feels like Lower Decks is actually more challenging because with Lower Decks, there's so much, reference to existing canon, right? Discovery does that a little bit, but this, there was easily a dozen references tonight.
Yes.
Easter eggs, comments, episodes. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's challenging to be the recapper.
Let's do a podcast. Where are we? Here, where's my notes? To the notes, Batman. All right. Okay, so let's get going with some fact check here. I mentioned the guy from the Alien movie with the chest exploding, and he's been in 1,000 movies, and I couldn't remember his name. Of course, his name is John Hurt. Rest in peace. He played the War Doctor in the Day of the Doctor, I believe, and he's actually played the War Doctor in a couple of episodes. But he was Kane in Alien, in which case, in which he had the monster coming at him. But we were talking about the movie 1984, in which case he played Winton Smith, who is the main character in the book 1984. He also played John Merrick in The Elephant Man, which I often forget. I don't know why. I know that David Bowie played the Elephant Man on stage, but I always forget that John Hurt played John Merrick. And he was supposed to play Don Quixote in Terry Gilliam's latest film. I don't know if it's a secret to people here, but I'm a huge Terry Gilliam fan. But The Man Who Killed Don Quixote came out last year after many, many failed attempts to create that movie. It was played by, I think, Terry Gilliam's second choice, which is Jonathan, what's his name again? Price, right?
Yeah.
So he was supposed to play, but this is the sad tragedy of it, is he was supposed to play Don Quixote, but unfortunately he became ill and he left us just, I think last year, after some illness. we were talking last week about Markham, and Jaime was trying to ask me if, and I didn't catch the reference, but he was asking me whether Markham is part of the six. I was talking about the mega city and went on some big tangent about how Toronto got amalgamated and all that kind of stuff. But technically, Markham is not part of the six because the area code in Markham is 905, which is all the surrounding boroughs around Toronto. Toronto's mostly 416, which is where, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, that's where the six comes from.
Yes.
Right, so it's the 416. Jonathan is not in the 6 right now. He's in Mississauga, which is also in the 905 exchange. So, yeah.
Yep.
And
do you know the 6? Are you gonna list the 6? What the actual 6 are?
Oh, have at you.
Well, so yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about how Toronto used to be made up of, obviously, first it was villages that became into cities, and then those cities amalgamated into one giant mega city. So Toronto merged with East York, North York, Scarborough, and Etobicoke. So we have 6 boroughs that basically joined together.
6 boroughs? Really?
Well, 6.
Toronto.
5? There's 5, right?
Well, it's
Toronto
proper,
North York, East York, Scarborough, and those 5s, and Etobicoke. 5.
Is Scarborough 416?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So all of those used to be their own cities for the purposes of saving money on all of the infrastructure and all the services and everything else. They amalgamated about 30 years ago. And so these 5
Was it 30
areas.
years ago, really?
Yeah, it was about 30 years ago.
Wow.
And they became, for a while, they were calling it the mega city, which sounded really fancy. Yeah. But yeah, basically all of those were within the 416.
But that's the GTA, though, that the Greater Toronto Area?
No, Greater Toronto Area includes Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, all those cities around. Markham is part of the GTA because GTA is a rough term. It's not a proper term. It's a loose term. It basically means everything in the Toronto sphere.
By the way, Jonathan knows this because he was a journalist on the Toronto Star for a while.
Yeah, I may or may not have helped run the largest newspaper in the country for a little while there, so I had to kind of have this at my fingertips.
Just the front page, nothing important.
Nothing important, yeah. Well, front page, the whole damn paper. So, but yeah, it was a pretty big deal when they did this. And some people like it more and some people like it less. But the 6 part of it came from, even though there's 5 boroughs that became the mega city, it's the 6 because of 416, which is the main exchange for Toronto. And and the rest of us are 905. And now there's 647. Because this is the most dense part of the entire country. There's like 6 different exchanges in this region now.
Something or other.
Yeah, 289 or something. And yeah, so it's kind of a weird, almost like a weird sub-reference now because there's so many different exchanges in the city.
Yeah, I wonder is Drake actually from the 6?
Yeah, Rosedale.
Rosedale. Oh, okay, right.
He's from Des Moines.
Not too shabby of a neighborhood, if you must know.
No, not bad as Toronto neighborhoods go.
Right. Okay. And so I was mentioning something about. I was talking about some sort of motion, or a movie camera controlled thing that the last week from when I was talking about the New Hope, and I just sort of gave it away, but it actually was motion controlled camera is the term I was looking for. Also known as VistaVision, apparently. The VistaVision was another thing they used in A New Hope, and that is shooting a 35 millimeter film on its side, like sort of in landscape mode, if you think about it that way, because most 35 millimeter films are filmed with the film goes, picture frame is perpendicular to the travel of the film. In this case here, they turn the film on its side to get more pixels, if you will. That's probably the loosest term, but more film grain to basically get a larger, better picture. And something that IMAX, if you don't know, IMAX is 70 millimeter, but it's also filmed on the lens or parallel to the travel of the film, so you get a much bigger picture that way too. Which is why, on film anyway, IMAX is a much higher resolution or higher film grain picture, right? But I think now IMAX is digital, right? So. But that's or is it really digital? I wonder, because they still have those big honking cameras, right? Nobody knows. You guys have gone quiet.
Yeah, I really have no idea.
Yeah, it's not like we know anybody whose father was involved in the IMAX, do we, Jonathan? Anyway,
apparently there is. Sorry, hang on. I'm going to do real time fact check. I just double checked this. It is 6. York and East York are separate. North York, East York, and so it is 6. There you go. So
York was the original Toronto, right? That's the original name of Toronto before it became Toronto.
Yeah. So East York, Etobicoke, North York, Scarborough, Toronto, and York itself.
Yeah, there's actually a street very close to me me, Jaime, called Parliament, which is where the Houses of Parliament actually started. Yep. Back in the day. Anywho, we were also talking about the Star Trek 2, I called it, but it was actually called Star Trek Phase 2, and that's where the Zahn reference came from. And I've got a link here to the show notes. But there's, I mean, you know, if you followed Star Trek throughout that whole period, there was, you know, costumes were designed and actors were hired and stories were written. And I think if I'm not mistaken, the original motion picture was one of the stories that was supposed to be in the Star Trek Phase 2. But yeah, so they were trying to get another Star Trek going there between, you know, was it 68, 69 when it was canceled to when 77 when the motion picture came out. Mm-hmm. So that was called Star Trek Phase 2, just never saw the light of day. And that's it for the fact check. So I guess we'll move on to the headlines, and Jaime is up first.
Yeah, so you will no longer need Disney Plus as a subscription to watch Mulan. That's moving to all digital retailers. So in the ever-evolving sort of ecosystem of how do we even do first-release movies? What does digital mean? What does subscriptions mean? Now across, what is it? I know I saw like iTunes and others. I have an easy list somewhere in here. I'm sure wherever your favorite places are. Oh, there you go. To Amazon, Fandango Now, Vudu, and other digital retailers. Like, pretty sure I saw.
Wait,
iTunes
so if you have Disney Plus, you can watch it for free starting next week too, right?
No, that is
December, I think.
December 4th, I want to say.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jaime.
For the free
you
with
mean
your
you can buy it on the other digital services, is what you're saying? Or
yeah, so it was exclusive to Disney Plus, except you had to have the subscription, and then you could like semi-purchase it. It's a weird purchase because it's only as long as you have the service. But it was sort of like a nice way for them to experiment with, okay, we've got this first-run movie that in a non-pandemic world would normally be in theaters. How do we not lose too much of that slice of money before moving it on to other places like they would traditionally do, you know, DVDs, Blu-ray, and then, you know, buy it on iTunes, buy it on Google Play, that sort of thing. Looks like this is following along that path. All right, cool. If you don't want Disney Plus, but you still want to order your own digital copy of Mulan, now you can start, or on October 6th, which as if this recording has already passed, so now you can definitely start doing that on Amazon, Fandango, Vudu, and I think iTunes is one of the other ones.
Yeah, I think it's on iTunes. I think I saw an ad for it on iTunes earlier.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I did too.
I am going to jam-pack 3 news items into one, just for the expedience sake. So everything is canceled at the movie theaters, and we'll refine that a little bit.
Wait, does that mean I can't go watch any movies at all now? Or is it?
Well, no. I mean, I guess it depends. So one of the larger theater chains in England and the United States has closed down indefinitely. Part of the reason for that is the fact that James Bond No Time to Die has been delayed now until the beginning of April 2021. That was expected to be one of the sort of saving graces for movie theaters this autumn, but unfortunately with it moving, that was one of the real blows to the movie industry and actually having stuff in the theaters this fall. And then following that, there was just a series of dominoes. So I've got, they were going to move Jurassic World 3 was supposed to come out next year. That's been bumped to 2022. Dune was supposed to be out this December. It is now shifting to 2021. And then Jaime, you've got some notes that continue off this as well.
Yeah, so with the Batman being delayed until 2022, there's some sadness there, but now some goodness in that it's essentially swapping places with The Matrix 4, which is coming in 2021 instead of being in 2022.
So in theory, we're getting not a lot going forward this year. Still on the slate, I can't think of anything that's of substance because they've already moved Wonder Woman. Batman was already set for next year. Jurassic World was set for next year. Dune was supposed to come out this year. Bond was supposed to come out this year. Those are gone. So there's really not a lot of must go to the theater movies. Black Widow's moved. I think we're safe to not. I mean, Tenet really was the only thing that they sort of floated out there as a trial balloon, and I think it's safe to say that didn't go well. So I think you're safe to stay out of the movie theaters until 2021, which is probably for the best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a bummer. I think all 3 of us love going to the movies and miss that in experience, but I just don't. I can't see how it's a good idea to go. And beyond that, now there really doesn't seem like a lot of reason to go.
Right. Is there really a reason to go see Jurassic World 3 in the theater anyway?
I think that one falls into the same category that Jaime and I talk about with, a Pacific Rim, right? Dinosaurs knocking things over. They were going to bring back, I must say, that one sounds interesting, and at least that they're bringing back Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum, and so it's like they're reuniting the original Jurassic Park cast, and so maybe I haven't seen any of the Jurassic World series in the theater. I've seen them all on Blu-ray or on demand, and they're good. They're quite
I saw the
enjoyable.
second one in the theater when I was in down east.
Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think
It blowed up good.
Yeah, exactly right. Like for 2 hours of distraction on a hot day when you want to be inside, or a cold day when you want to be inside, it's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Next up, this one's interesting. So this is the first of a couple pieces of news that we've gotten about the next Spider-Man movie. So there's been a couple of weird rumors going around that, and this one is from the Hollywood Reporter, Jamie Foxx is reportedly going to return in Spider-Man 3, the as yet untitled sequel to the Far From Home and Homecoming.
I'm going to go with Spider-Man 2025.
Yeah. By then the young Spider-Man won't be such a young man. So he's going to return as Electro. Now, he was Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was a completely different Spider-Man. It was Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man. And that movie was not well regarded, to the point that they rebooted Spider-Man yet again after that for the third time. So that's kind of a weird thing. And then there was a little bit of news this week, and I haven't put it in here, but there was a little bit of news this week that apparently there are discussions to bring Garfield and Tobey Maguire back.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And maybe doing their own version of sort of Into the Spider-Verse in the next movie, where that's why we're going to see this Electro, is the idea that our youngest version, our newest version of Peter Parker is going to cross paths with some of the other Spider-Men and women in this sort of giant team up thing, including those two versions of Spider-Man, so that they'll sort of establish that they are sort of part of the canon, but they're in their own universes as their own different Spider-Men. Interesting. I must say I'm on board, because they really are. It sounds like they're going to push with the new Doctor Strange movie, the WandaVision stuff. They're going to push the idea of a multiverse with Marvel's cinematic universe, the idea that there are universes where, parallel things happen, things are not quite the same, but they're similar. That was explored obviously in the outstanding Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated picture a couple of years ago. It could be really cool. I don't know. What do you guys make of this possibility?
It's interesting that they're sort of doing this the way they've done the Batman movies, where they have a different Batman every couple of years, just because of different producers and directors and whatever. But the idea of bringing them together is very similar to the kind of Doctor Who kind of stuff that they've been doing for years, where, like I mentioned, the one movie where they had 5 doctors, although one was on tape and refused to show up in the set. But he was in the Day of the Doctor, so go figure. So it's interesting to sort of have this sort of parallel, kind of world. I mean, in the Doctor Who thing, it's the same. It's supposed to be the same guy who regenerates, man or woman who regenerates over the years. They're kind of doing that now with the current Doctor Who, because we have 2 doctors in the same universe, right? And so it's an interesting sort of take on things. I mean, now that the whole concept of multi-universes is something that they're actually thinking is a real thing, even though it's kind of a stretch in real life. But it's an interesting take. I mean, I to be honest with you, I liked Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I've watched a few of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans, but even the love interests. Who was Garfield's?
Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. Yeah.
Emma Stone. Yeah, I'm a big Emma Stone fan. I like her a lot.
She's great. Yeah, she's terrific.
Yeah, and it was Gwyneth Paltrow. No, not Gwyneth Paltrow. What's her name again? The one from the vampire movie. Who was the first one?
Kristen,
yeah, her.
Kirsten Dunst? Kirsten Dunst. Actually, I that was one of the things I did when I was a younger reporter. I actually went to the Spider-Man 3 press event in LA and got to interview all of the actors, directors, everybody involved. That was a lot of fun, but Kirsten Dunst did not make a great impression. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and maybe she was tired, but she was really not very very engaged.
Right. Unfortunately.
The funny part of this is they're also talking about potentially this similar kind of event happening in the upcoming Flash movie with the different versions of Batman, because they've already confirmed that Michael Keaton is going to make an appearance as an older version of Batman from that sort of 1989 Tim Burton universe. And Ben Affleck has been confirmed that he's coming back. So there's word that they're going to try and loop in Christian Bale and do the similar concept of these are all Batmen from different parallel universes. So it'll be the dueling retro superhero vibe. I mean, it's interesting nostalgically. I mean, obviously, I have a soft spot for those Tim Burton 1989, 1992 Batman movies. Val Kilmer, I'm not sure they could get him into a bat suit at this point, but I think it would be interesting to see if they can, do something interesting with the characters. I don't want just them bringing characters back for the kitsch of it, but if it makes sense and it tells an interesting story, I think that'd be great.
Maybe he'll do like a Mickey Rourke kind of interpretation of Batman.
Yeah, that'd be something.
All right. Oh, this is me. I thought this was Jaime.
Nope.
What do you know?
You're next.
All right, so we were talking about in I think last episode of Zvon, last episode of Lower Decks. They had they dropped the name Zvon and two episodes I should say, and Jaime looked that up and found that it was actually from the failed Star Trek Phase 2. But so there's an interesting podcast here, sort of a video podcast called Comic Book something or other. And they had Michael McMahon and Tawny Newsome talking about. They talked about the Zvon reference, and actually it's quite an interesting little interview if you watch it. There's a couple of little sort of reveals about what's going on, with these guys. But
yeah, that's way deep cut stuff.
Yeah, and as a mini spoiler for tonight's episode of Lower Decks, as we talked about that, like Zahn was like, canon now, based on what Lower Decks done. The Spock helmet is apparent. And I didn't notice this on first watch. I watched on social media as people had screenshots. The Spock helmet, I don't know, like 60s toy that was a cheap cash in of like, we have this space helmet thing with this weird like siren, police siren light sort of thing on it. And boy almighty, this Star Trek thing is popular. Let's just spray paint or put stickers, I'm not clear which, on the helmet that says Spock, literally Spock. Official Star Trek helmet, Space Fun helmet from that old toy is canon because it shows up in the background apparently of Lower Decks. So it's
one of the things that again, spoilers for later on, but it's one of the things that Mariner's been hiding in the contraband.
Oh really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to go back and watch, and I noticed when there's a scene where Captain Freeman puts something on her shelf, and she's got a whole slew of
kitsch,
collectibles.
Yeah.
And we've seen some of those in previous episodes where I think when the guest captain came on board and she was Mariner's old buddy, they were going through the stuff that was there.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, so back to Jonathan.
Well, speaking of Star Trek, we got some interesting news this week that at New York Comic Con's Star Trek panel, Kate Mulgrew revealed that she's going to be reprising her role as Catherine Janeway, which is really neat. So she's going to be doing the voice of Janeway in the new animated series that's coming, Star Trek Prodigy. And Prodigy is the one, if you guys will remember, that's the one they're going to do for Nickelodeon. So it's sort of kid-friendly Star Trek, as opposed to Lower Decks, which may or may not be kid-friendly, considering how many times they drop F-bombs in that show. So, she said, I can't wait to endow her with nuance that I never did before in Star Trek Prodigy. So interesting to finally, this will be the first time we've seen her since she was Admiral Janeway in First Contact, right?
Yes.
Is it First Contact or Nemesis? I can't remember. Jaime, do you remember?
No, you know what? It is Nemesis.
Beginning of Nemesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're at the Jaime Lopez show. So off you go, Jaime.
So one thing we've got here are some publicity stills from Netflix showing us what Henry Cavill looked like as Geralt in season 2, the delayed season 2 due to COVID, of course. And he looks witcher than before, so that's looking pretty solid there.
Was he the Witcher in the first one?
It was a very lame joke of how Witcher sounds like, better as an example. But nevertheless, beyond the folks who were on the previous season, apparently going to have some new actors joining the cast, including, I'm going to butcher his name, Christopher Hivju, who played Tormund Giantsbane on Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So that'll be cool to see that actor again.
So my question was Henry Cavill, is he the Witcher character?
He is Geralt of Rivia, which is like his name, but he happens to be a Witcher.
Oh, he's not the Witcher. He's a Witcher. Okay.
Well, he is the titular Witcher in the show.
Well, because I watched like 10 minutes of it and went, no. He lost me at I think he was like sword fighting in a forest somewhere, and I went, yeah, okay, I've seen this show before.
It's very unorthodox without giving spoilers. It's a very unorthodox setup for a season, and it really kind of doesn't tie together until you get through the whole season. You're like, oh, okay, now I see exactly what happened, and you connect all the dots.
Oh, it's a flashback. Okay. Right.
I suspect it might be one of those shows that's good if they continue with it to watch it all in one lump when they get done 4 seasons or 5 seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. I have very similar feelings about I want to say it's Dark, the German one that we tried getting into season 2 and said, wait a minute, we completely forgot everything. It's highly complicated. Let's just wait till the whole series is done and try binging through it in some dedicated time frame to make sense of it.
And then you have a show like Fargo, where every season is a new set of characters, or so it seems. It's the same city, right, or same town, but it's an ensemble cast, but every ensemble is connected to the previous ensemble, but not in chronological order.
Yeah, they have actors playing their own relatives and all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, it's interesting
very strange
stuff.
way of approaching it. Yeah. So I just realized it. I didn't realize. I don't know when it started, but I just catching up on it now. So I don't know how many shows I've missed, but I just started watching it again this weekend. So this one's with Chris Rock.
Yep.
Right. What's happening in the Game of Thrones there, John?
Yeah, Game of Thrones. So it's been a little while since we've had some Game of Thrones news, and this one's kind of interesting. So we know that HBO is working on a prequel to Game of Thrones, and they're going to focus on the era of they're going to focus on the Targaryen family, Daenerys' family history, and it's going to be called House of the Dragon, and it's set 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones. So the big news this week is that they have cast the lead, and so it is an actor who you'd recognize if you see him. His name is Paddy Considine, and he was on The Outsider for HBO. He's been in he was in World's End, the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost movie. He was in Hot Fuzz. He's just one of those faces you recognize immediately. So he's going to be playing the king. Which king is he going to be? King Viserys Targaryen. And that's apparently the big lead part. So they're actually making progress on the show, and I guess that's what they can do when they can't actually do any filming, but it sounds like they can get their ducks in a row and get this stuff going. So I think it'll be interesting to see what this guy does. I only know him as a bit more of a comedic actor, having seen him in those Frost and Pegg movies. So I don't know what kind of bona fides he has as a serious actor on a Game of Thrones type of thing, but I'm in.
Cool.
The next one is the weirdest thing I've seen in quite a while. So what happens if you combine the Pixar film Cars with the Batman universe? Well, of course you get the new HBO Max series, Batwheels. HBO Max has announced a new children's animated series about the Batmobile and the other Batman vehicles called Batwheels. The show, which is aimed at viewers in the preschool demographic, will feature Batman's trusty Batmobile, Bam, and other vehicles like Jet the Batwing, Buff the Bat Truck, and they are going to be joined by BB the Batgirl cycle and Red the Redbird Robin's motorcycle, and they're going to be about the adventures they have driving around Gotham City. I just can't even. I don't even know what to do with this. Save me, guys. I don't know what to do with this.
It's an odd pairing, and getting back to the Kirsten Dunst comment, it does kind of feel like something said, hear me out, guys. I got an idea on how we could use this license. We're only allowed to use the the vehicles, right? Okay, I got an idea.
They're like, okay, so we've tried Batman, we've tried Catwoman, we've got all through the rogues gallery. What if we start doing the vehicles? Ugh. Yeah. Anyways, that's coming.
Yeah, so I vaguely remember it must be like a Hot Wheels toy or something from like the 80s that was like a Joker mobile. So that's where my head went to, of like, will they have like a Mystery Machine repainted style Joker mobile on this show?
Well, there's got to be villain cars if there's hero cars, right? Like it's inevitable.
So I'm looking at some Hot Wheels that I have here above my computer. I've got a Back to the Future DeLorean. I've got a Dark Knight Batmobile. I've got a Darth Vader car, which I don't know. I have KITT. I have the Justice League Batmobile. I have a 70 Charger RT, and I know there's at least 2 more Batmobiles that I could get. The Arkham. What's the prison thing called? The
Arkham. Arkham.
Is it Arkham Gothic Batmobile as well? But I mean, so it's not like that. These kind of companies haven't sort of done these licensee things before. Well, actually, the one from Justice League, right? So it's not like they haven't done these sort of things. I mean, like I remember having a Batmobile when I was like 6, and there was a boat you could get, and there's been a multitude of Batmobiles over the years, and of course, the whole deal with the Cars deal is that as you know, your sons were quite young, and we used to buy them every single Cars thing that would
Cars
come
toys,
out, right?
yeah. So. Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm just saying, wow, that really feels like a stretched premise, but these guys, I mean, it sounds like a money factory to me. There's going to be licensing up the wazoo, and it makes sense. It makes sense.
My friend has his daughter is really into some British show, I think, that is what, like, they're vehicles of some sort, like cars. What the heck are they? They're scooters or motorcycles or something. I think is the premise. So it's not unheard of to have those sorts of things, and certainly there's history with like Thomas the Tank Engine that predates the Cars series, but it does seem like a very strange amalgamation here, and I am going to be pre-offended, assuming that the voice actor for Jet the Batwing is almost certainly going to be black, and I think that's terrible. And if I'm wrong, then I'll recant my statement.
I love the concept of pre-offended, Jaime. That's excellent.
I'm pre-ordering my offense here.
I love it. All right, and we'll end our news on a bit of a down note, but worth mentioning. So Terry Goodkind, a very, very well-regarded fantasy author, has passed away. He died last week. Actually died a few weeks ago. We just found out this last week. He was 72 years old. He wrote a bunch of things that have been turned into things, but mostly he was known as just a fantasy novelist for the fantasy fans. He wrote very famously the sort of Truth series that was very, very popular, started that back in the 90s, and he wrote for decades. He wrote 17 books, I think, in that run. He wrote Legend of the Seeker, which was turned into a TV show that ran about 10 years ago for a couple of years. And just like one of the just biggest names of modern fantasy. And so sad to hear he's gone. He was a bit of a controversial figure. He was apparently not beloved necessarily by everybody, but apparently very talented and very prodigious writer. So sad to hear about his passing.
Well, here we are, kids. This is the part of the show where we start talking about, in this case, the season finale of Star Trek Lower Decks. I can't believe it's been 10 episodes already. And this episode is called No Small Parts. So Hyman Olympius Jr. is going to do the honor of going through the show, and Jonathan and I will be sniggering in the background. So off you go.
Yeah, this was a slightly longer episode. It was like almost 30 minutes instead of the normal 22. So it's a jam-packed finale. So let's see what we can do here. So we start off with the USS Cerritos around Beta 3, which is apparently, I think, for the animated series, where Kirk and company figured out
from the original series.
Yeah. Was it the original series? Oh, so they created an animated still in that style, huh? Okay, kudos to them. So apparently from the original series, this is where Kirk and company had figured out that this whole society was being run by a computer named Landru, and it was all good when they left. And here they are a generation or two, or several later. It's like, oh, the people are following the stupid computer again. right? And this is the problem.
Are you with Landru?
Yeah, it's like the original Purge, right? It was the Purge 1964.
I think so. Yeah. I forgot
That's
about
the one where
Purge
they
part. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they go. The episode was called "The Return of the Archons," and so basically what happens is that Kirk and his crew are looking for the USS Archon on Beta 3, and they encounter this sort of Western style, like Old Westy kind of community, and they're all sort of brainwashed by Landru, and they don't know sort of what Landru is. So that the episode is about figuring out what it is, and yeah, part of the thing is basically there's this, like, I think they call it the Red Knight or something like that, where basically it's the Purge, where if you're out on the streets, you're fair game, and it's sort of this, like, culling thing that Landru thinks is a lot of fun for making its human puppets dance and stuff. So yeah, weird episode, really. I mean, it seemed like it was one of those, like, how can we save money this episode? Oh, what we'll do is we'll use the Old West set next door on the lot, and we'll come up with some plot line that has them interacting with Old West characters for some reason.
Yeah, it depends on what season it was from, because I think the third season the budget was really cut back, right?
Yeah, I think this was season 2, I want to say.
Right.
Either 1 or 2. I know it wasn't season 3. It was either 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. All right, Jaime. Sorry, we divested.
Which is where the comment from what's Gary O'Connell's character called?
Jack Ransom?
Jack Ransom, yes. This is where his comment comes from.
Yes.
Yeah, this is where in-universe, TOS, which is out here, outside of that universe, is the original series. But TOS is canon now, in that Ransom is talking to Captain Freeman about, it's so weird going back to those TOS era planets. He's like, what? What's TOS? Like, those old scientists.
That was a great pull. That was really good.
Yeah, that's a neat one, and it pulls into the sort of theme here of, like, does Starfleet's and the Federation's approach to interference in other cultures, like, does it really make sense? And when they do first contact, they don't really do a, like, so how's it going later on sort of thing to make sure everything's going on.
Well, and the moral of that story was, like, proved out in Star Trek 2, right? Star Trek 2, they, like, basically were like, well, we'll leave Khan and the settlers here on the planet, and we'll assume it all worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course,
forget about them. Yeah.
SETI Alpha 6 explodes, and SETI Alpha 5 ends up becoming a wasteland full of brain parasites, and they all go crazy, and people die, and everything else. This is the exact same scenario, right? They were like, oh, it probably all worked out for them.
But they destroyed the computer that was running society, and then the hope that they'd be fine. We'll leave them some replicators, and
that could have warp away and cue the music, right?
And again, that could have been solved with a can of Coke. I can fix any computer problem with a can of Coke.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we discover that, like, the Cerritos was ready to leave. It was like, wait a minute, we're missing crew. What's going on here? And it turns out that Mariner and Boimler are still on the planet. And Mariner's like, what was she doing? She, like, selling some of her contraband?
No, she's giving it away. It seems like she says, like, Robin Hooding it, right? She's giving away art supplies.
That's right. And Boimler's, like, getting into the not following orders act. And Mariner's like, hey, that's pretty good. You won't be stuck in middle management like Commander Ransom. So burn there. And as it turns out, the command crew have been listening into the conversation, as presumably they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on with our ensigns that are down there. And in that conversation that's being overheard, Boimler spills the secret of Mariner's relationship to Captain Freeman and an admiral. And to everyone, as it turns out, Captain Freeman runs over to the console, like, boops some buttons and beams the two of them up just as Boimler's making a kissy face and asking, does she give you Captain Kisses, as he's teasing Mariner. Nothing good there for your career, I'm sure, when you do that sort of thing. And we end up cutting over to the USS Solvang, which is around the Kala system. So this is the crew that we had seen before. They've got a new ship called the Solvang that is replacing the Rubidoux that was destroyed by that weird encounter at Farpoint style alien. And it gets instantly attacked. It's just, just getting wrecked. And everything's gone wrong, and you're left with did they blow up, or was that like a dramatic sort of thing that happened to them? And we don't know, and we'll find out later in the episode. and we cut over to Ensign Tendi, who is very jazzed about being the orientation liaison for a new recruit that's joining the crew. Very similar to the beginning of the season, where Boimler was her orientation liaison, welcoming her as a new recruit onto the ship. And meanwhile, Rutherford is like seen adjusting his implant's attitude selector that he has. It's kind of like, you know, the input modes you might have on your TV. And he's got optimistic mode and sexy mode, many other modes like Klingon and British as a mode.
If I may interject, Jaime, I took the time to pause every single part of the episode that it mentioned the modes and wrote them all down. Can I run through them? They're very funny.
Yeah. I'm very curious on this list.
So we have extremely optimistic mode, sexy mode, Klingon mode, British mode, passive aggressive mode, holiday spirit mode, cowboy mode, sassy mode, drunk mode, weird mode, sleep mode, bro mode, and hot take mode.
Yeah, so what happens is he's trying to adjust something and he knocks a panel off the side of his head, and that's when he discovers this button.
Yeah.
And starts flipping away on it.
Yeah.
Right.
I wish we'd seen more of these modes. I would have liked to have heard bro mode Rutherford.
It's definitely a pretty good bit, even self-contained, but it ends up becoming interesting and important later on in the episode.
Yeah.
So our new recruit is an exocomp, which we have not seen nor heard from since the TNG era, when Data was the one who had to stand up for the rights of the robotic peoples that Starfleet wasn't aware were a sentient species of like little, I don't know how to describe them if you've never seen them and haven't watched the show. They're like little floating drones.
They're fire hydrants with feet.
Yeah. And it's kind of cute that it's clearly in the science division because it is painted. It's not even wearing clothes. It's like painted with a uniform.
It has an equally bouncy feminine voice like Tendi too.
Right. So we end up seeing Freeman, Captain Freeman, that is, talking to Ensign Mariner about, like, in her ready room, like, look, like, why did we even keep this a secret? Like, this is falling apart on us. This is autocorrect that messed up here. Ransom comes in.
Yeah, random.
Yeah, it does that a lot to me. It angers me when I'm using my phone trying to take notes. So
yeah,
Commander Random comes in and then, like, instantly starts kissing butt with Mariner and ends up tripping all over himself in front of the captain, which, by the way, he's only hard on her when she makes him hard. And like, what? What's going on? What are you saying? And this will continue on as other people in the crew, now that everybody knows the secret. You have this one guy that Mariner went on a date with, some time ago, and he's like a weird Wolf 359 truther. That's Wolf 359, where the Borg attack was an inside job. The changelings aren't real, and the Dominion War never happened, sort of thing.
Yeah, that throwaway line was fantastic. Changelings aren't real. The Dominion War didn't really happen.
Yeah, and everyone wants to schmooze with Mariner, right? So you even got, people who she just kind of casually runs into, just throwing themselves like, hey, what do you think of this thing? Can you show the captain? Here's this idea I have. And along this hallway path, we have Dr. T'Ana talking about how she not only wants Shax, the security officer, but apparently she has coital hooks that she'd like to dig into. It's like very, very weirded out by that one. But the Cerritos gets the partial distress signal from the USS Solvang, and the Titan is in range, but no, we're going to take it so that they don't get all the glory, right?
Well, and they kind of want to stick it to the captain. They mentioned her name, Captain Dayton, right? They want, because they had to save them last time, and she kind of wants to go and pull their fat out of the fire again because she thinks it'll be funny.
Yeah, because from the previous episode where that crew had showed up, they had mentioned how they keep running into trouble and we keep having to save their butts, sort of thing. Yeah. A little bit more serious this time, but very interesting. So even Boimler gets in on the act of trying to kiss butt to Mariner, because he's like, hey, like, I think I can get promoted to the USS Sacramento, and to which Mariner's like, hey, wait a minute, if I get that promotion and move to the USS Sacramento, then no one will know me. And she tries cleaning up her act and say, sir, yes sir, and
rolls down her sleeves,
even
too.
unrolls her
sleeves
arm
down,
sleeves.
hair up. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You
And,
technically outrank me, sir.
So then we've got Tendi giving the tour to the as unnamed to us exocomp, and Tendi's like, so do you have like a alphanumeric name like T? And I didn't write it down, like T130101 or something. He's like, well, I didn't want to seem weird, but I've calculated a mathematically perfect name, Peanut Hamper.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
And we see as Tendi's trying to help her along in sick bay that, like, our area, that like Tendi wants a clean, easy ramp up for this new person joining the crew, right? Peanut Hamper. But like, it's kind of sad because Peanut Hamper really can't pick up tubes and other easy things because like her physical robot body just isn't built for that. But as it turns out, when they're in sick bay and working with Dr. Ta'ano, like, okay, if we get this suture even slightly wrong, it is instant death for this patient. But that was no problem at all for Peanut Hamper because she is super good at doing some accurate suturing and like, oh, I can teach the doctor how to do this thing. Oh yeah, show me what's going on. So she's kind of, outshining Tendi a little bit on that first day. Just it's kind of rough.
But I like the line, like Tendi very quickly sort of turns to like, oh no, this is great. She's like my great success since she's done. So she sort of turns from like it seems like she's going to be sad to like really happy for her and says, meld that flesh, girl.
Yeah, she ends up finding the positive, the silver lining in the darkest clouds sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so we end up with the Cerritos warping right into the debris field of what remains of the Solvang. And they are, again, similar to Solvang, just instantly attacked with all the pew 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 hitting them. And this ship, mysterious ship that had attached itself to the Solvang is now attached itself to the Cerritos. And the crew's like, all right, we're going to warp out. And Freeman's like, no, don't do that, because if that's what we would do, that's probably what the Solvang tried to do as well, and that's probably what did them in, right? So don't do that. The Cerritos has its warp nacelle torn off, and everything is just looking bad. And Mariner and Boimler, get to the bridge. Things are a mess. The mysterious alien that are attacking come onto the comms channel and like, oh, we thought the Enterprise was strong. It's like, well, this is the Cerritos, and it turns out it is the Pakleds.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
The Pakleds are not only back from the TNG era, they are whooping butts.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was Boimler who says they're known for faking distress calls so they can steal stuff from people who show up. And the Cerritos is being dissected by their mega ship that is comprised of like 30, I think he said, like 30
different species. Yeah.
And it's here where Captain Freeman is. Thank you, Tim. There's another. There's another unfortunate autocorrect that is not naked. It is baked in the I need a dangerous half-baked idea that breaks Starfleet codes and just ticks me off. And she just sets Mariner loose of like, this is what you're good at. Go solve the problem. And they end up determining, all right, here's one thing we do. We're going to need a virus to, we found this vulnerability. We can implant a virus into their system because their computing tech isn't all that secure. So Rutherford is like, all right, cool. We can get Badgie to code up a virus for me. And he goes and Badgie's like, hey, can I teach you a lesson? And he's like, Badgie, I need you to create this virus. He's like, yeah, no, I can't do that unless you turn off the safeties. Like, what? I was like, yeah, you're going to do that. And I forget why he said this, but he says in the really creepy, I'm always monitoring comms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's talking about, you knew exactly what he said. I already have 3 viruses ready. And he says, well, you have 3 viruses ready already. Were you monitoring comms? He says, I'm always monitoring comms.
Right. So the aforementioned Pakleds have beamed in and are boarding the ship, and
the world's slowest beam-in.
Yeah. And in this case, Mariner has pulled out the contraband that we have mentioned a couple times by now, and it's a whole mess of cool stuff, like her Klingon bat'leth and the aforementioned Spock helmet and stuff. And
Yeah.
Freeman's like, how much contraband have you hidden on my ship?
Yeah, and there's clearly bottles of blood wine, and she said later on they say drugs. Like, there's all kinds of stuff in there. There's also a great line in there from Ransom, which was one of my favorite Ransom lines this season is, I'll set my fist to stun and my kicks to kill.
Yeah, he did that on the fighting planet, right? Where they were captured. Yeah.
Yeah. Double hand punch.
I wrote I would miss you. Was this Tendi talking to Rutherford when it's discovered, like, all right, he's gonna have to go? No, that's prior to that. I don't know what I would miss you is. Sorry. Sometimes I take poor notes. In the fray, Captain Freeman is injured, and it's a real serious moment of what's going on there. The crew realizes that the Exocomp peanut hamper could upload the virus. They're just perfectly almost made for the job, and she's like, nope, I'm gonna pass.
I'm gonna pass.
It was like when you all, like, I don't know, your guts turning inside out or something, like, whatever.
She says, I joined Starfleet to piss off my dad, not to be a virus bomb. And then she says, like, sucks to be organic, enjoy having your guts fly out, or whatever.
She beams herself out to abandon the ship.
Oh my god, that part was so funny.
Yeah, we do learn that there was hypothetically a heroic bravery mode for Rutherford, but I think that was not on the list, because Tendi, even though Rutherford has turned himself back into normal mode on his implant, is like, all right, well, I'm the one who can do it. Like, I've got the perfect thing here. I can just load it into my implant, and that'll be the way that we carry the virus over. And she's like, no, don't do it. Like, don't sacrifice. You must be in heroic bravery mode. Just like keep hitting the button until you get to normal, because like you're talking nonsense here. But Shax delivers. He just picks up Baby Bear, and takes him with him. They get on a shuttle, head on over there, and the virus upload is going on while Shax is defending Rutherford from the Packlids on the ship.
And it's best day of his life, because he's been dying to get into some major action, right?
Oh yeah, he's been wanting to fight. He's as he's crashing the shuttle into the Packlet ship, he says, "This is the best day of my life."
Yeah. And the virus upload is going really well, but then starts to slow, and Rutherford's like, what's going on? What's going slow? And Badgie's like, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm still angry because I had my neck snapped.
Yeah.
And Badgie's like, all right, we're going to let this virus upload occur, but only in a way that it's going to blow up the ship. And Badgie is like, loving this. Shax, in a very much a not today sort of mode, rips out the dang implant, just cold-hearted, out, like no anesthetic, pulled right out of Rutherford's face. It shoves them over into the shuttle, gets them out, and
just he throws Rutherford in there, and he says, "Hang in there, Baby Bear," and he pushes the shuttle out the back through the hole he made coming in.
Yeah, and Shax goes down like a freaking hero, sacrificing himself and blown up on the Packlet ship. Yeah. Continuing the very strong tradition of security officers dying in the first season of Star Trek series, and we're not done here. It's like, oh no, there's more of those Packlet ships, and they're like, we have you now, Enterprise. But who should show up? But possibly the best part of the show.
Oh yeah,
is Boimler's like, hey, there's another ship coming in. It's the Titan, and it's here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and it's all out of bubblegum. And the Packlet's like, oh no, it's another Enterprise. And it comes in, it's wrecking everything, and apparently Riker knows Mariner, because that's where she gets all her contraband, all the cool illegal stuff. And Kentra's like, wait, what? What stuff? And he's like,
we are so talking about this later.
Yeah. So you have the Packlids retreating, and eventually the Cerritos is back in space dock, and they're given the option to jazz it up. But Captain Freeman's like, no. The Cerrito should not look all sovereign class. He's got his own style, right? And you've got Tendi waiting for Rutherford to come out of his coma. She's like, do you remember me at all? And he unfortunately doesn't, because that implant had impacted him, and she seems like, well, very sadly, like, what this means. We get to become best friends all over again. Yeah. finding
Yeah,
the
she does the sort of
positive.
fake I'm sad into I'm excited again, right?
Yeah, and they end up having a Moreau's funeral for Shax, and say that, he's with Prophets now, and it's very Star Trek 2 style, right? Like the angle, the camera angle for the photon torpedo tube sort of coffin thing, and you end up with Captain Freeman again talking to Mariner in her office about like, all right, we've got a whole year's worth of insubordination you're responsible for. And Mariner's like, what? You bring that up now after what I just did and saved? And she's like, no. If I did anything that you were doing, like I'd be out immediately, right? Like a captain can't do those sorts of things. But you, as somebody who's not a captain, and more specifically, it's like you can get away with some of these things. And as I like to call it here in the notes, Captain Freeman essentially wants to Garrick Ensign Mariner, where from In the Pale Moonlight, a fantastic episode from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Absolutely. One of my favorites.
Underhanded stuff needs to get done in order for the good guys to win.
Yep.
And Captain Sisko recruits Garrick, and spoilers, but Garrick does some underhanded stuff that ends up with the right thing that they wanted, that the Romulans joined the war against the Dominion War.
Yep.
Granted, they had to do all these crimes, including murdering people.
Yep.
And Garrick's like, you knew what you were doing, didn't you, when you recruited me? I could do things that you could never do.
Yep.
And you're not dumb. You knew that I was going to do them. And so you're not totally clean, but you got the result you wanted. And it sounds like that's what Captain Freeman's doing here, right? Of like, hey, there's some qualities here that on the record by the books, we can't have official policy, but it will get us to do the right thing, get the right result.
Yep.
So that's an interesting setup. You end up with Riker, Captain Riker, and Deanna Troi on. Actually, I don't think they're on this. I don't know if they're on the Cerritos or if they were in the space dock.
Yeah, they're in a bar somewhere.
Yeah, it was unclear to me, but Riker says hello to Freeman, and Commander Ransom wants to be introduced to Troy's Betazoid friends, and she senses with her Betazoid powers, it's like, hey, you're talking a big game, but it actually covers up huge insecurities. Like, I can work with that. Can they tell that too? Is there...
I can make that work.
Right. And Riker says, good job to Boimler, and we end up seeing the many messages that Mariner in the future here, very short future, has left angry messages to Boimler. Like, Boimler, you backstab me. I can't believe you're taking a promotion on the Titan. Good man. Boimler has gotten himself that promotion to, it looked like Lieutenant Junior grade.
It did look like Lieutenant Junior grade. Yeah, he's got his 1.5 pips. Yep.
Yeah, so he's on the Titan, and he's able to tell the other folks, like, oh yeah, that planet we're going to, I could show you around. I've been there, because he was there earlier this season, right? He knows the little
Solgana 4 from the earlier episode. Yeah, the one that has the little Kronos and the little Andorians and little Risa.
Yeah, says, will you bring the little statue?
That's right. Looking for some Majaharo.
And you end up with Riker back on the bridge of the Titan after coming out of the turbo lift and saying, I was watching the first Enterprise. Those guys had a long road getting from there to here.
Oh my god!
It's the sick as burn towards the series finale of Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
And the final part of the season is good old little peanut hamper left floating out in space.
Saying,
everybody forgot.
Help. Yeah, and I also liked Riker's, instead of, make it so or engage, he does warp factor 5, 6, 7, 8. And then does the jazz song.
And Deanna says, not the jazz.
Not the jazz. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things too. You mentioned the Easter egg about the screenshot of the animated series with Kirk and Spock from that show. Mm-hmm. But did you notice that the name of the shuttle was Sequoia?
Yep.
And it was sort of handwritten
I didn't see
on.
That.
It wasn't like, I don't know. It didn't look.
Yeah, it looks like it was written on with marker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sequoia, and and had some like war paint painted on the front of it. I guess with the same magic marker. But
there was also a good reference when they're right at the beginning of the episode when they're standing in front of Landru. She sort of says to Ransom, Freeman says to Ransom, if it's not, one thing, it's another. And she references the Gamesters of Triskelion, which is another TOS episode. That's the one where Kirk and Chekhov and Uhura go down onto the planet and have to become gladiators and fight for the amusement of the Triskelions.
Right, yeah.
That's another good little, got to know the deep cuts of the TOS to get all these little in jokes. This one was packed. Like this, there was so many little sub references and jokes and little references. Again, that Spock helmet was fantastic. Like, God, what a deep cut that is.
Yeah, and although we have seen the notional design of the Titan in like the novels book covers, this does make it canon, like proper canon, not beta canon of like, all right, as long as the main materials don't.
Well, didn't we saw the Titan in Insurrection, right?
No, isn't that the ship that Riker flies in to save Picard at the end of the season? I mean,
no, that's the Zheng He or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
No, the Titan it's because the beginning of Insurrection is the wedding, isn't it? They get married.
Yeah. Wasn't that Nemesis?
Was that Nemesis?
That Nemesis, and I know they mentioned the Titan, but I don't think they ever
because they're on it. Like
show it.
They actually, I think at one point they actually show up in it. Troy and Riker show up in it in one of those two movies. I must admit, it's been a long time since I've rewatched them.
Well, Insurrection starts with Data.
Yeah, Data going nuts. I remember that one. All right, you guys vamp. I'll find it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if it ever showed up on screen at all, and if what I'm thinking is it didn't make Final Cut, but it might possibly be in deleted scene or something.
I got a picture here of the Spock helmet. I thought you guys would enjoy. It's a good show. I mean, so is this going to be Riker's new thing? He's going to sweep into the end of every season and rescue everybody. Like, is he going to come into Discovery season 3 and rescue everybody at the end there?
Yeah, so he's got at least 3 that I can think of. 3 situations. So he saves the day in All Good Things when he shows up on the Enterprise D, the one with the 3 warp nacelles in the future that has the mega phaser that blows up the Klingons. Yeah. He shows up in Picard in the season finale, and he shows up in Lower Decks season finale. He's
the new trope.
He's the cavalry.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be the nickname. I'm looking it up. I mean, maybe you're right. I think maybe they just reference it because I know that was the thing is that Riker and Troy are leaving at the end of Nemesis to take command of the Titan, but I don't remember if we actually see it or not.
Yeah, and to me that was always kind of a real silly missed opportunity. Just normally for merchandising, if it was like, all right, well, I don't know that we can spend the budget to make this ship. It'll only show up for like 30 seconds or less. It's like, bro, but you can sell models of it and put it in Happy Meals and all sorts of other stuff. Like they should have done that. But now the version that I've seen I've never read any of the Titan novels, but I have seen the book covers. I'm like, yeah, that is straight up the I think Luna class starship, USS Titan. And looking online, it says that I think Tuvok is on his crew, perhaps as security. I'm not sure. So maybe Tuvok might come back in some future episode as a voice actor.
Interesting. Yeah, that was a real nice. I mean, again, we had a little bit of a tease halfway through the season with Star Trek Day. We knew that we were going to get John Delancey as Q. We knew that we were going to get Jack McBrayer was going to have a voice to play at some point. We knew Kurtwood Smith was coming. This came out of nowhere, although when they referenced the Titan earlier in the episode, you kind of had to figure that was going to pay off. They don't say, hey, the Titan's nearby, and then not have it pay off.
Well, do we know that Riker is the captain of the Titan at the time? Or?
In this era, yeah, he would be, because this show runs after Nemesis, right?
Yeah, because there was some point there where earlier in the season where Boimler wanted to get promoted to the Titan, or no, the guy that was the guy
who wanted to transcend,
he ended up on the Titan, right? And then he got kicked off.
And he immediately gets kicked out for throwing. Or no, it's not the Transcendence guy. It's the guy who gets transferred over, who gets kicked off for throwing garbage in the.
Boimler's buddy from the
Academy.
Yeah. This was good. This was a hell of a finish to the season. This was pretty grand in scope. They wove together a lot of existing stuff from the previous 9 episodes. They wove in a lot of Star Trek history and made it seem pretty epic. They killed off an established character for the show. Hell of a way to finish the first season. Really, really strong finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The interesting thing about this show, and I think we realized it partway through this season, but just to recap this season, that each episode is reasonably standalone and I think of this series as being kind of like season 4 to 7 Deep Space Nine, where it has an arc, right? Like this whole season definitely has an overall arc. Characters have their own arcs that change them, and yet you can sort of watch episodes in random order for the most part, except for this finale is kind of hard to watch out of order, and still be kind of okay if, like, yeah, these are standalone episodes that you get more as you know more about the story, but you're not just left out in the cold as you would with some of the more highly serialized ones, like we've talked about Disco and Picard, where you jumped into episode 7 and be like, what the heck is going on? Right. So I thought this was pretty interesting, that it was, in my view, maybe one of the best ways to handle Trek, where there's definitely folks out there that are like, I kind of liked older Trek where there was like an alien of the week or a weird space anomaly of the week. And this series, I think, had a good balance between having more serialization where, like, you truly should watch every episode in order. You're not like at the whim of, oh, well, UPN decided to show, WWE this week, or some election thing came up and now this episode's out of order, or you missed it or something. Like, you don't have any of that happening. You don't have the suits from the studio saying, well, you got to make it more standalone because we're going to syndicate this, and they'll be shown in whatever order that, like, the video jockey over in Topeka, Kansas decides to show them in. And so I feel like they, with this series, and they've experimented, right, with Disco and Picard, like, I think they really nailed with this series the right balance between enough old school Trek monster alien of the week sort of thing with the new Trek of, you're going to see an entire story play out from episode 1 till the finale.
Yeah. And it's funny, it occurred to me as I was watching it, because I think one of the issues that Tim, I know you and I share with the Orville, is that it's a really tough balancing act to balance the funny and the action, the real consequences and the humor. Like, it's a really fine line, and I find that Orville is a little ham-fisted with it sometimes.
Right, yeah.
It's not quite as, it slams a little from one gear to the other. You're going from first to third sometimes, where you're like, oh, there's like a huge, space battle and they're in trouble. Oh, and then there's a slapstick bit and you're like, what? This show has, and particularly this episode, because it was pretty, the stuff with the Packlids, ships getting destroyed, they, killed an entire crew, they killed off a main character. Like, those things weren't without consequence. I didn't exactly shed a tear when Shax died, but I was like, oh, he was a funny character. That's kind of sad, but I felt a little more investment than I think I have felt at any point so far with the Orville, in that I felt like, they really did, the serious times were pretty serious without getting too over the top, and the funny parts were funny, but it managed to walk that line in a really deft way that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it sort of has that sort of feel of a Futurama or even The Simpsons when you look at, like, even just looking at the still images of the characters, like Ransom, like he's got that sort of square jaw kind of look, and all the characters are drawn the same way, and what I like about this Star Trek is, as I said before, is I think Star Trek's always taken itself a little too seriously, and especially the first series, right? But this has allowed us to sort of, and to bring all the Easter eggs in. I mean, like, the thing about it is
oh yeah,
I mean, every episode has tons of Easter eggs, that fly over the heads of the people who are coming at this for the first time. But by the same token, though, it's written in such a way that the first timers can sort of get, enjoy the humor and enjoy the character bonding and the writing and that kind of stuff. And it's funny, I was just listening to the first episode of our season this year the other day, and you were talking about, how when Captain Freeman first, before we even knew Captain Freeman's name, and she's going on about Mariner, you said she's got to be her aunt or her godmother or something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if we did find out in the first season that she's her mom, but or first
episode, yeah.
Yeah, but you had, you were saying is, the way it had been written. So I mean, there's a lot of sort of similarities in the way this thing is written, and I'm glad that they kept some of the sort of, surprises like Riker or Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis. I'm glad they kept that close to their chest, right? I mean, it's funny because I guess Riker kind of, or not Riker, but Jonathan Frakes kind of hinted at it, because he sort of said, they could come up to Toronto and they could, just throw me into a chair and put me in a scene.
Yep.
I mean, and that's essentially what they had done. And it's funny. I don't know if you saw this. I've been following some of these characters on our Spotcast podcast Twitter account, right? I follow, Jerry Ryan and Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart and Marina Sirtis was complaining that she didn't really get much of a role in Star Trek Day, right? Because they were talking about, they're talking to all the captains. She's like, wait, I was a captain, because she did pilot. I think you said she piloted it twice, the Enterprise, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, she's the one that saved it. I'm doing air quotes.
Well, I don't think "saved" is the right word, but she landed it.
Well, she saved it. That's
not everybody died. I mean, the Nexus ribbon tore them up, but it had nothing to do with the crash.
Well, and the people in the lower decks, they're in the lower decks anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. Right? I mean, yeah, they had it coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So now that we've reached the end, this is the 10th and final episode of the season. When you view it as a totality, when you look at the whole season, you think back. Obviously, I
have to say I've enjoyed this more than the 2 seasons of Discovery.
Yeah. How about you, Jaime?
Comparing it to this,
or just overall Trek. I mean, this where does this sort of fit in now?
It ranks fairly highly. Now, granted, I often try to caveat that is it's still fresh in my mind, and so I kind of need a little bit of time to get away from it for a little bit and then see how I feel. This is often a conversation we had when we were talking about like Star Wars episodes that came out, and obviously as time has gone on, I've changed, I think, a fair amount on some of the newer stuff. But I think this one is going to continue to rank fairly highly because I think it does a good job of balancing, new viewers versus, existing viewers. I think it does a good job of balancing the tone, as you mentioned. And I am on this podcast, for folks who don't know, I am like the Orville fan here, but I fully agree that this does a better job of hitting the tone right between comedic and serious. And I also think this does a really good job of matching the right sort of balance of serialized versus episodic nature. And I think it's got some things that are really kind of nice to see, where like this battle with the Packlets would have been really hard to do in real life type CGI styles, right? Where it works brilliantly as an animated series where they could tear apart the ship. And I'm sure it's not cheap, but it's probably not quite as expensive as if they were trying to tear apart the Enterprise or something from like movies.
Well, the Cerritos does get torn apart in like the 4th or 5th episode this year, but miraculously it's repaired in the next episode, which is the beauty of an animated thing. But I have a question though. So the Packlids, I remember them from I remember the characters, but I don't remember the story behind that episode. What was the story about? Were they scrap hunters, or did they lure the Enterprise?
They do exactly what Boimler said. They basically they set out a distress signal that brings in ships, and then they basically try and steal.
Right.
But they're bumbling, like they're idiots.
Yeah.
Like they're not quite as dominant in their wielding of power as they are in this episode by any means.
Right.
But yeah, I think they bring them aboard the Enterprise. Do they not, Jaime? They bring them aboard because they think that they're harmless, and then it turns out that they're not.
Yeah, they like kidnap Geordi or something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how it resolves, but they were, it was one of those like, hey, let's go help. Oh no, they've taken our person hostage.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
There's a similar episode like that in the Enterprise series too, where they take Trip.
Yep.
Somebody takes Trip and they imprison him on the ship and force him to fix their warp core or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's an old trope, right? You steal the Doctor and bring them back to your town to be the Doctor or whatever.
Right.
They did that in Firefly, right?
Yeah. I feel like the Starfleet code should be, don't send the chief engineer, send a lower decker for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
And have them report to the chief engineer who's safely away on their Zoom call saying, yeah, that's cool. It looks like, their impulse manifolds need to be, degaussed or something.
Yeah. Right. Can I just say I like the scene with Billups handing out hand pies as well from tonight's episode. Ooh, key lime. I don't know what a hand pie is, but that was funny.
That dude is so weird that he's the unsung hero in the background of
he's
of
a
the
scene
series.
stealer. He is absolutely. Well, again, it's Paul Scheer, right? A great comedian. He steals a lot of scenes where you're like, that dude's weird, but really funny.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys notice that Sulu's foil is also in Mariner's stash?
It is, and actually Boimler uses it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, there's always like, and it's funny because again, I pride myself on catching a lot of things, but usually by the Friday, if episodes air on Thursday, usually by Friday, there's a few different good Star Trek fan blogs and stuff like that will have Easter egg hunts basically spelled out,
right.
And I'll catch a good 8 or 10 things per episode and pat myself on the back, and then I'll go through their lists. I'm like, oh, they found 30. Like, it's crazy the level of stuff. Now, some of it you could say they're kind of reading into it, but some of the stuff, like, they're right. Like, they'll have stills and stuff. You're like, oh, how did I not see that?
Yeah, or even some of the things that people say, like the dropping the terms, right?
Yeah.
Like the name dropping.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
Yeah, this is quickly climbing the charts. It's one of my all-time favorite treks. It's really enjoyable television. I must admit, I'm a little bit bummed. If we didn't have Disco to look forward to next week, I probably feel a little bit of a letdown. But it is definitely tempered by the fact that we're gonna jump right from this straight into what is, I would say, a pretty anticipated season of Discovery, given where we left off and the sort of huge, surprising ending to the last episode of season 2. So
right. So what do we expect to see from? I mean, we've seen the trailer for Disco 3. What do we think we're going to see in the season? What do you think is going to happen? Like, we know that I'm going to say Mariner, but we know that Michael Burnham meets some guy in the future.
Yep.
Right. And it's the guy from the short trek, right?
Yep.
And then we have another subplot where Saru and the other gang from the Discovery. Discovery, name of the ship. They're doing their thing, and I guess somehow they meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, she was separated, obviously, from them in bringing them to the future. I think the interesting thing will be to sort of, this will be our first sort of look at the far future of the Star Trek universe, right? We've never gone past, like, the furthest we've gone forward in the main core timeline is Picard.
Right.
And, that is not a hugely dissimilar world than what we're used to, right? There's some differences, obviously, the Romulan diaspora, and there's some stuff that's different, but it's pretty similar to what we're used to. To see it another 600 years past that, or 500 plus years past that, that's pretty cool. It will be very interesting to see what the sort of motivation is. Are they going to try and spend the season, how do we get back to our own time, or is it we can't go back to our time? Because that seemed to be the point that they reached in season 2, was we can't go back, right? So is this the status quo? Are we staying in the future?
But wait, how does the Red Angel come back in season 2? Doesn't the Red Angel come back in time? Yeah,
but it's because she was like slingshotting in time because she was tied to Burnham, right? Wasn't that the whole thing? Now that Burnham's in the future, she can't. That's not a thing anymore, right?
Right, maybe. Yeah. But isn't that Burnham in the future coming back?
Yes.
Right.
I think that got fully closed. It is complicated to go through, and I'd have to go listen to our episode to see how we resolved it. But I think between Mama Burnham and Michael Burnham, I think everything was accounted for, and they're going off into the future to prevent the sphere data that's in the Discovery's computer systems from falling into the hands of Control, which probably is dead, but you never really know. So why take a chance? We're taking one for the team. And what I expect to see is definitely a lot of what you guys talked about there, of course, but also as a reminder that I'm an irrational Lexa Doig fan. Just wanted to bring that up because it's vaguely relative. I don't expect to see her on there, just to be really straightforward and clear, but I do expect something kind of like the Andromeda series that she was on, that was a Gene Roddenberry property that was hypothetically at some point supposed to be what if the Federation falls and they have to bring it back together? And that was the premise of that show, that their equivalent of the Federation, the Commonwealth, was this great thing, and it fell into chaos, and the main character played by Kevin Sorbo was flung, well, not flung, appears in the future for through space means, space anomaly means, and decides like, I'm going to rebuild the Commonwealth. And that's sort of what I expect to see happening here, from just given what they've shown, is that like the Federation it's fractured or gone, diminished, and the Discovery folks are going to try to rebuild the Federation.
Yeah, and you get that from the promotional material, right? You see them standing there with that big Federation flag sort of planting in the soil. Like it does have a real feel of that, doesn't it?
Yeah. The flag with the many fewer stars that you can count, it's like 4 or 5 instead of the very many that it has. Is kind of like, pick your nation, but I happen to be from the USA, so I map it to, what if the United States didn't have 50 stars and only had like 17 or 5? What would that be?
Oh, you mean
like?
So like next year?
After the Civil War?
Yeah.
If you need us, we'll be on top of our wall we're building out of snow this winter, and we'll be holding the marshmallows out over your country as it burns.
Yeah, we're going to have a stack of used virus syringes to make walls out of.
That's right.
So you guys haven't seen World War Z and haven't seen how walls are overcomable without even mythical dragons and stuff.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. I think it'll be interesting to see. But there was a great South Park episode last season last season or the season before, where they've got Mr. Garrison as their stand-in for President Trump, with the sort of boisterous attitude and everything else, and he basically says, I'm going to build the wall, and they say, sir, the wall's already been built, and he says, what? And then they drive up, and the Canadians have built a wall. The Flapping Head Canadians have built a huge wall. They're like, no, we're full, thank you.
Oh, those Canadians with their beady little eyes and flapping heads so full of lies.
That's the ones. Blame us. Don't blame us.
Yep.
Well, it should be good. I'm looking forward to next week. That's Discovery, I think, really gained some momentum for me in season 2, and the whole sort of mystery of who is the angel, and that was okay, but I think they really sort of finished up strong as they tied that whole storyline together and built towards the we're going to have to sacrifice ourselves, and I think it'll be interesting too, because they've sort of streamlined the crew a lot, right? We're going to have sort of the core of people that are there. We know some of them. We're going to get to know some of them better. Tig Notaro is coming back, which is great. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how much time they give to the different characters, or if this is still going to be sort of the Michael Burnham show.
Yeah, right. and given that they presumably, unless plans have changed and I missed it, are still at some point planning to make the Section 31 show with Emperor Jojo. So she either recreates Section 31 in the future, very similar to the Federation being recreated, or I'm assuming she gets kicked into like a wormhole or something, and like bye she goes back into the past where she came from or something. I'm kind of curious to see how they deal with that.
Yeah.
Yes, Siri. All right, let's get to our watch list. Oh, sorry, Siri, go away. Thank you.
Is it you? Right. Are you wrong?
Yeah. Let's get to our let's get to our watch list. So what do you got, Jaime?
I've got one on YouTube from Metaball Studios. It's
Star Trek based.
It's really cool. They have a whole bunch of different kinds of videos, but the first one I'll talk about is the one we've got linked here in our show notes for those of you transporting at home, which is their fictional starships size comparison, where they have 3D models overlaid over, I believe it's Manhattan, to give you size comparison, and they start kind of small, like the Pikmin astronaut ship, and go from there until you get to the size of things like the USS Enterprise original and Next Generation, mm-hmm. the SDF-1 from Macross, the Battlestar Galactica, and kudos to them for mentioning, and I don't want to spoil it here, for at some point when they get larger, showing off a ship that is the main plot point of a very famous Chinese movie of recent import, and they've got some other ones if you're interested in more and you like the video. They've got sci-fi land vehicles and air-based vehicles, and even a very different kind of let's model stuff and see how big things are relative in size, where they take what if countries were planets based on their surface area. And I was kind of surprised by the list, actually, in a couple spots. So very, very cool. Spoilers, Canada is free freaking massive, which I knew, but didn't have a good sense of given the Mercator projections distortion on typical maps that I view.
Yeah. Even so, by landmass, it's the second largest country in the world, so it's big. Mm-hmm. It's big.
Yeah, yeah.
We like it that way.
Yeah. I'm just watching Jaime's little movie here while you guys talk about it. All right. Jonathan, what do you got for the watch list?
Yeah, I've got a few no-brainers. So I put Disco, obviously, is sort of the duh one here. Of course, we're all looking forward to that one. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow night for us, it'll be in the past by the time our audience listens, but the season finale of The Boys, season 2, will have aired. And I'm loving that show, and I'm loving where it's going. The performances are fantastic. It really built off a strong season 1 with an even better season 2, and I cannot wait to see how they wrap this one up. So I'm very, very keen. That'll be on my to-do list this weekend for sure. And the other thing I've got on here is just today, we got the first teaser trailer for the Invincible cartoon series that's going to be on Amazon Prime. Invincible is based on a comic book series written by Robert Kirkman, creator of The Walking Dead, and it ran for, about 12 years, about 12 or 13 years, and it just ended last year. It was a really, really exceptional superhero series. It focuses on a teenage boy named Mark Grayson who he knows his father is a superhero, but he's a teenager and he doesn't have any powers, and then all of a sudden his powers sort of manifest and he's able to sort of join into the sort of superhero family business, as it were. But in fine tradition of comic books, things aren't always as rosy as they seem, and being the son of a famous hero is not all it's cracked up to be. And it's being played very much like the comic. The comic it's got some light bits. It's a little bit like old Spider-Man. It's got a lot of it's about him and his relationship with some of the female characters in his life. It's about him and his friendships and stuff like that. So it's kind of got some appeal to that sort of not just pew 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 audience. And looking at the first trailer, we knew that there was going to be a really talented voice cast on it, and it looks really good. And the animation style is very reminiscent of the artwork by Ryan Ottley, who drew most of the series. Cory Walker drew the first few issues, but he drew the bulk of them, and it really is reminiscent of his art style. And I think it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one comes together. It seems like they're going very true to the stories from the comic. Hopefully it won't get lost in the mire like The Walking Dead did as a television series. It is going to be pretty explicit. There is a lot of blood, guts, and violence mixed into the comic, and it looks like from the trailer that's in the show. But check out the trailer. It's very cool, and it says it's coming next year. Again, with animation, obviously the next part is they don't have to go out and film, so hopefully that one will be still not getting bumped. But yeah, it looks really, really good. Have you guys had a chance to look at that one?
Invincible? No.
Yeah.
Haven't seen the teaser here, so I'm going to take a peek at that from the notes. But I am a little bit familiar with the concept, and I was like, why does this hero look familiar? I was like, oh yeah, because I think probably some 12 years ago, I probably did see some of the comics, and I think I might have gotten like a free comic book day comic or something that was like, oh, here's like an issue 0 or something to explain the basic premise. Because I knew that you were going to say, oh, his father was a superhero, and then he suddenly becomes a superhero, and dealing with that. So I'm not super familiar with the property, but it seemed pretty cool from the comic that I had seen.
Yeah, actually, for those who are interested, it's this year Free Comic Book Day didn't happen. It's an annual event that usually happens in spring. This year, obviously because of COVID, it couldn't happen in the traditional form, which is that most publishers will put out a free book. You go to your local comic store, you can pick out usually one or a few of the free issues and have some free stories. This year, they decided to do it a little differently, so they've been sending them to the stores in batches so that your local store can give them out, put them out where people can get at them, or put them out and have little events and stuff like that. The Image Comics Free Comic Book Day book for this year is a reprinting of Invincible #1. So if you want to sort of get a little intro, and I'm sure this is obviously tied to the marketing, if you want to get a little taste of what that's like, if you go to your local comic store, chances are you might be able to pick up a free preview issue. So you can actually have a little taste taste. And it seems, like I say, from looking at the trailer and my understanding of reading up on it a little bit in advance, that they're going to follow that storyline pretty, especially the first sort of arc of the comic is going to be very much part of the animated series. So you can get a little sneak peek if you're interested.
Right. Cool. And so my picks are a couple of, I just finished watching Ted Lasso like about an hour ago. So I put that on here. I know that Jaime had mentioned that one before, right?
Mm-hmm. I finished that one up too.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, it started off as a sort of ridiculous premise, and actually gets quite good near the end. I think the 7th, 8th, and 9th episodes are quite good.
Is it strictly a comedy? I've seen the trailer and it looks funny, but I haven't gotten into it yet.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's a fish out of water story, obviously, right? But and it's the whole sort of the country bumpkin and kind of thing coming to society. But there's some good twists and turns in there, and it's sort of a dramedy. It's got some drama and some comedy in it. But it's a typical sports thing where you root for the home team, as it were.
Worth the time?
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth watching for sure. Yeah. I was actually thinking about it because I think my free subscription to the Apple TV ends, and you can't just roll into go buy some more hardware and get another free year, which is kind of a shame when you think about how much money you could potentially spend every year. But I guess the subscription is nowhere near what the cost of some of the gear you buy from Apple is anyway. So I was thinking about so have I watched enough to sort of justify every month paying something, and are the quality of shows that good? I mean, this is one of the better shows that I've seen on Apple TV in a while, right? All things considered, I can't think of any other show that was sort of blown me away. But I'm also a big Jason Sudeikis fan, right? So he's kind of interesting in the story. The other show I started watching too, it's called Next. I think I might have mentioned it or tried to mention it coming up. It's about an AI. It's kind of it's on traditional television. It's not on any of the sort of heavy duty channels. I think it's like ABC or NBC or something like that, right? It's not a specialty channel kind of show. So I always have my worries about those kind of shows because when the big three networks get a hold of a show, they kind of water it down a lot. But so far it's been pretty good. Actually, what did I watch? Oh, and Brave New World is getting interesting too. I think I mentioned it last week, right? But Next is looking interesting too. And I did finish. I don't know if I finished Utopia last week when we were talking about it, but I did finish it off this week. So it'd be interesting to see what you think about that one, Utopia, John.
Yeah, that's definitely on my to-do list. Now that I'm sort of winding down some of my other series, I'll have to pick that up. Did you finish Raised by Wolves?
I did. I ended up having to watch the end of it on Crave because Rogers messed up the timing on the schedule and stuff. And
this is unprecedented stuff you're telling me here. I had no idea they would do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they screwed up the schedule first of all, so it was very hard to record, and then they would end the recording schedule before the actual episode ended. Yeah. So I kind of watched it in kind of disjointed order, and so I finally logged into Crave and to try and see if I could watch the last 2 episodes. It's definitely got that Ridley Scott vibe to it, like the sort of everything he does all ties together, right? Like other than some of the earlier movies, but all the sort of Alien and Alien 2 and what was the one he just did a couple of years ago with Michael Fassbender, or Prometheus, right? That kind of ties in. So right. Everything all kind of ties together after a while. So and it's interesting, like we talked about how Lower Decks ties in the other Trek, and we've talked about other shows like Doctor Who that ties stuff in, and they bring back characters, they bring back plot lines, they bring back enemies and that kind of stuff. Ridley Scott's kind of getting predictable in that sense. I mean, a huge fan of his work, right? He's one of my favorite directors, but it's like, okay, again, this storyline again, seriously, I'm not going to give it away, but I'll see if you get the same sense that I did, because it was sort of a fresh take on another future telling of the history of man and the future history of man, and it just comes back to the same things over and over again, right? So yeah, and
that was a short season too, wasn't it? It wasn't very many episodes. It was
10.
Is it 10? Yeah,
10 episodes. Yeah, so it was again, it's not one of these things where it's sad because it could have gone a whole lot of places, right? But it comes back to the same plot again. And it's like, okay, enough. We get it, Yeah, there's only one possible, alien type life form. I think I'm saying too much.
Yeah, I'll put that one on the list below Utopia then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Utopia was a lot of fun. Utopia is a lot of fun. I'm just going to leave it at that, right? So, yeah, interesting things. Yeah, don't check out IMDb as you're watching it. Wait till you're finished.
Noted.
Because I made the mistake. I went to look up one of the actors, and I kind of got a bit of a surprise. I'm like, oh, well, I shouldn't have watched that. Shouldn't have waited till I watched the episodes and then gone back in. Again, I'm saying too much. Anyway, I guess that's it for yet another week and another series. We're going to move on to Discovery next week, and Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right, Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
Right, and my name is Timitra. I am TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
There we go. It's over.
We made it.
Another Star Trek put to bed. So I started putting the lower decks. I didn't realize I hadn't put the lower decks up on YouTube. That's why I was watching them again. So, and I saw a clip on how to sort of get more people to follow your YouTube. So apparently there's a whole SEO kind of thing. Not so much SEO, but the whole way of creating a homepage and getting YouTube to refer people to you kind of thing. So yeah, so it's all about the homepage apparently, and got to have a banner and blah blah blah. Right. So I've basically put the Spockcast content as a sort of a feature playlist. Yeah, so.
Cool.
Yeah, if you guys want to go in and like the playlist, then the three of us can sort of use our cloud or whatever to create a thing. Do you guys have YouTube channels or playlists and stuff?
Yeah, I have a so I use my YouTube channel to put my concert stuff from all the stuff that I go to.
That, yes.
So I've actually amassed a rather surprising to me large following on that channel.
Yeah, I noticed you seem like a lot of stuff I get nailed every now and then with this is a copyrighted thing and you shouldn't be showing it. One of my videos got taken down.
Really?
Yeah, one of the it was a song about some animal life forms. That got taken down, and I don't see why, because the artist published a movie on Prime, I think, of a live concert, and they saw, I guess, whoever the copyright owner of that track saw the video that I posted and went, oh, that's exactly like the concert that we just published, and took it down.
Yeah, I've heard that they are far more restrictive on music than they are on video. So sometimes it's just about the song. They don't want to hear the song, right?
Yeah. Well, I've noticed, too, it takes a long time for them to render the video, so I'm sure they've got some algorithms looking at the pictures and things, right? So
yeah. But mine is, I was going to look it up here. My numbers are stupid, and it's baffling, but it has a lot to do with, like, a handful of videos. So I've had more than 3.5 million views of the, 80 or so videos that I've put up over the years.
Really?
But most of those are around about 6 or 7 videos. Mostly, my wife and I went to see Dua Lipa, who's a very popular pop singer.
Yeah.
And she's very attractive. And so I get comments from around the world because she's very internationally famous. Mm-hmm. And there's a few other artists where, like Morrissey and a few others that I've, gone to see the concerts, put up a song or two. And then, for some reason, they just take on a life of their own and get hundreds of thousands, or if not, I think some of the Dua Lipa stuff has 1 million views plus. And so I managed to rack up 4,000 or 5,000, 4.6, so 4,600 plus subscribers. hours.
Really? Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot, but again, I don't do anything with that. It's all just concert videos, right?
Well, so the thing about it is like, yeah, the problem with concert videos is because if they're copyrighted by somebody else, you can't monetize them. But you can
none of my
monetize
stuff
other
is mine. And as a matter of fact, I deliberately go in when I post stuff and demonetize it. I turn it off anyways.
Yeah,
because it's not mine. It's not like it's a cover version or something where I'm like, hey, look at me. It's just like it's not my money to make. Some of the stuff that I have has had monetization attached to it. Like they'll put a little commercial on it, and that's for the artist to make the money, which I'm happy to support. Like I want them to make the money. So
so for me, like the surprising, like I got a Foo Fighters thing from Rogers Center there that's got like 59 or 5.9K views, and then a couple of Elton John one, two Elton John ones that are in the thousands, and one Xanadu played by Classic Albums Live has got 5,000 views, but 23,000 views of me using Nebo, which was from More Than Just Code podcast, like with just me demoing how and listening to like the keynote and taking notes with my pencil on my iPad Pro, and that people just chew that up. It's a 3-year-old video, which I find really interesting. Like why that one of all the stuff that I posted, right, gets that many views, right? So between I've got some episodes of More Than Just Code on here, and I've got all of the Picard series on YouTube, and we've had 2 views, 4 views, 13 views, right? So I don't know what the secret is, to get people to look at your stuff. It's an algorithm for sure.
Definitely that, yes.
Yeah. So if you go to my YouTube page, I don't know if you can do that or not from where you are. You can see how I've changed the homepage, and then so you pick a feature video.
It's
and you put
Tim.
It's Tim Mitra. I don't know.
Tim Mitra. There you are. Sure enough. Look, I just subscribed to you.
Yeah. So I got another subscriber. How about that? But you can see that so the whole thing about they've got I got the season finale for Picard there as a sort of a featured one. The one thing the guy was sort of saying was do like a 40-second video where you talk about what the purpose of your channel or the kind of content you put up there. And the reason why you do 40 seconds as opposed to minutes is because people aren't going to look at it for that long. But if somebody finds something if they watch one of your videos and they end up on your homepage, there's a way to put, like, you can see that I've got the Lower Deck stuff and the Spotcast stuff as my second roll, and then I've got uploads. I moved it up to the top, and then I've got the Spotcast roll. And for some reason, it shows it in the chronological order. I haven't figured out how to turn it around and make it go the other way. And then some of the More Than Just Code stuff, and then the concert stuff, popular uploads, and then I've got the live performance roll as well, right? And
nice.
So how you lay this out, like you go into customized channel and you do this stuff, and then on the about you write something about who you are, what you're doing, and then you can put some links there. So I've got links to the other 2 podcasts there. I can see my total views is 53,000 views, which is way less than you.
Well, yeah, I guess, but again, mine is driven by attractive pop singers. So clearly what you're missing is more.
Look, I'm subscribed to you.
Women.
I'm one of your 46,000 viewers.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, how about that?
Glad to have you aboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually videos. I just I had set it. I had gone early in the pandemic when I was trapped at home. What I had done is basically uploaded every video that I could find of every concert I've been to over the past few years. Just put the date and put it in, put some SEO words in, and set them to post one a day every day, and it lasted for about 3.5 months. So yeah, some stuff that you and I have been to is in there. The Tom Petty, the Tragically Hip's final concert. There's some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, I have some hip stuff too, but I did all my hip stuff on what's that thing called? Periscope, so they're low quality, right? So
yeah.
Let me see let me go over to your channel. Let's have a look and see this Jonathan Gulan guy.
He's got a lot to say.
Yeah, see, like, you obviously need to do your own page, but
no, I haven't done
Bob Cajun and which one's got lots of views? Why doesn't it show which one's got the most? I'll go to videos, I guess. Which one's got millions of views?
Oh, it's the Dua Lipa and Florence and the Machine has a few thousand views. Morrissey has a few thousand views. There's a bunch in there. A lot of the stuff, like, it's funny because some of the stuff I'm like, oh, this is a great video. Like the stuff when you and I went to see David Byrne, those videos are fantastic. Like, this is a really interesting performance, but like 25 people have looked at them.
Well, and he's just, again, he's also come out with, he just was at the Toronto Film Festival, I think, right? Like that Utopia concert that he did.
Yeah, that's it's going to be on.
I'm sure we'll get a slapped on the wrist. I'm trying to still see. Yeah, you're at 106 views. I'm just scrolling through your thing. 1.6 views, Morrissey, right? 1.6 thousand, I should say.
Yeah.
And then CD color.
Yeah, again, there's lots of enjoyable stuff on there. It's just obviously what people are into, right?
Yeah. New Order.
They even did some Joy Division in there. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I was watching. Who's the two guys that do Everybody Wants to Save the World?
Tears for Fears.
Yeah, they have a good video on YouTube. The two of them playing together, right?
Yeah, I saw them live maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Thinking about it, yeah.
And I've always enjoyed their music. I think they're very underrated, but they were fantastic live. Really, really enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. So you should move the Dua Lipa one up as your featured video if that's the one that gets the most hits.
Yeah, there's a few of them in there that have gotten a fair number. It doesn't hurt that for her show she was wearing child-sized clothing.
Don't say that out loud.
Well, it's funny because it notifies. I've got it set so that it notifies me if people make comments on my posts, and I get posts in I can't tell you how many different languages because she's very popular internationally, and I find it very funny because of course they post in their native language and that's completely fine, but when it sends you a notification, it doesn't bother the translator or anything, so I have no idea what people are saying. It could be wildly inappropriate, but I don't know. I don't speak any number of the languages because they're not even most of them in a Latin alphabet. So
the most comments I get is on the Xanadu video, right? And it's funny, they're like, I can't believe it took 6 guys to play what Rush did with 3 guys. I'm sorry, but if you go back and listen to the album, it's all done with double tracking, and it was like 3 guys double tracking.
Yeah.
So don't start.
Yeah.
Anyway, but now that one for some reason that's the only one people. That one and one of the Elton John ones people comment on, but that's it.
Yeah.
And I got more. I should probably post some more.
Yeah, again, for me, honestly, when I started making videos years ago, going to shows, I'd sort of take out my iPhone, or if I have I have a little pocket-sized, very nice little pocket-sized camera, I would take it out, and it was because my wife is only 5'3". We would go to shows, and we got into a very good habit of trying to go early enough that she could get into a position where she'd be close to the front or off to the side, where she could have a good vantage point. But even then, sometimes she struggles. So I would often make videos because I'm 6'2". I would make videos where, from my perspective, I could see things very clearly, and then I would share them with her so that she could enjoy them from a little different perspective.
Right.
And then, after a while, I just sort of amassed a bunch of these things and thought, well, they're just sitting on my hard drive. I should do something with them. So I put them up there and then started sending her links, and then it just sort of took on a life of its own because they're all public. So I'm glad people are enjoying them because I certainly I'm desperately miss going to concerts. I'm a huge live music fan, and this one of the more upsetting portions of the reality we're all living in is the and we've talked about it before, Tim, one of the best ways to support artists you enjoy is to go see them live, because a lot of that money goes into their pockets, as opposed to nowadays the fractions of pennies that they get from streaming and everything else. If you like an artist and you have the opportunity to go, obviously if it's safe to do so, you go, you pay for the ticket, you buy a t-shirt or an album or whatever when you go there, and you support them, and that money is a little more directly to the artists, and I'm more than happy to do that with artists that I like. It's I worry not just about the artists, but I worry about the venues. I worry about the sort of state of that industry going forward. This is pretty devastating times for that particular area right now. Artists are hurting, I think, not being able to get out there and do that stuff.
So I've been watching the Classic Albums Live people every Wednesday. They do a show, right? And they've been doing it at the Empire Theater in Belleville.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, which is, obviously, I guess the hit count in Belleville is pretty low. And, it's interesting because they do, an album every week, and it's really cool, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of artists I've noticed, I'm still on all the mailing lists that I was on before for different artists I enjoy and everything else. A lot of artists are doing the sort of, you can pay a fee and have exclusive streaming of a live show. They'll do, sometimes they do it from home, Sometimes they'll do it in a venue, and they'll obviously have a skeleton crew to help work with them to do that. I haven't done it yet. I do know a few people who have done it for, some artists, Canadian artists, smaller artists and stuff like that. I can't say I would enjoy that as much, but then I kind of feel like maybe it's something worth doing just again to sort of help support some of the artists who I've enjoyed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I know like even huge artists like Billie Eilish has got one coming, I think it's the 24th of October, where she's doing a live, but it's like ticketed just like a show. You have to purchase a ticket, and then they give you a streaming code that you can put in, and when the show comes on, you can sit and you can watch the show. Again, for me, it's not obviously the same experience. You have a nice TV, you have a nice setup. Obviously, those things are good, but it's not quite the same as being right there in the room with the artists and watching the artistry up close and everything else. So
right,
yeah.
Well, I think that's a good time to pack it in.
All right.
Okay.
Talk to you guys next week for the season premiere.
Yeah.
Next time, and Jonathan, you said it was you.
Was it this show, or was it more than just code? We were talking about the word premiere. I don't
I'm
remember.
actually unclear which show it was where I talked about.
He was asking
premiere.
about the pronunciation of premiere.
Yeah.
I think we say it the French way, right?
American style, we tend to say premiere, and as far as I can hear from listening to the British say it, especially on like English Premier League, is premiere.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was struggling to get through it on whichever show it was. If you don't recognize it, Jonathan, it must have been more than just code, I guess.
I don't recognize it. I will say this is one of those ones that I'm going to default to English as opposed to Americanese. American English is horrifying, frankly. It's horrifying, the things that you people have done to the English language. So I will wholeheartedly endorse whatever it is that the British say. But then ours is like Canadian English is actually a little skewed because ours is influenced by French more strongly than English.
That's why I'm saying premiere,
English.
Yeah.
We tend to lean towards our bilingualism.
Well, it's funny because we have the Sky Dome Theater, Sky Dome Arena, which is now called Rogers Center. Is it? Yeah, it's the Rogers Center.
Yeah, a
friend of mine came from England. He was staying in the hotel, which is I'm going to say it the way I would say it in Canada, which is Renaissance Hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
not Renaissance.
No, he was saying the Renaissance Hotel.
Renaissance, yeah.
Yes, which is another sort of, for Jaime's sake, that's another way that we differ between the Brits in here. And actually, like they say beta instead of beta software, right? So, and sometimes they say MacOS instead of Mac OS.
MacOS.
I attended a talk with a tech talk with Paul Hudson, who is very clearly English, and it was interesting to hear some of the ways. What was he saying that drove me crazy? There's one word he kept saying over and over. He had to say it over and over again because we were talking about Swift and Combine and stuff like that. And what was it? When I first used to hear them say beta, it kind of irked me. But there you go. So what were you asking today about? What do British, like I'm British by birth, right? So that's why I would say I'm British. That's why I said, we're all the Britons. We're all Britons. Well, I didn't vote for you.
That's true.
So one of those breakfast thoughts was, okay, so what do the people, the citizens of the United Kingdom use as a term to refer to themselves?
Yeah.
And using, people from the United States of America refer to themselves as Americans.
Right.
And people from Canada sneak in an extra I and say Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I know people from the Great Britain part of the United Kingdom.
Well, it depends which part, British. Too. It depends. Like Scottish people would not say they're British.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't say
and
British.
Irish people would not say they're British.
Right. So
and Welsh people would not say they're British.
No.
Like, what would they call themselves? United Kingdomans?
No,
Britain. In Britain or in England itself proper, they would say British, right?
Yes.
In Scotland, they would say Scotch or Scots.
Scots,
right?
yeah.
Or Scottish.
Yeah.
Scottish.
But my point is, like, if you're going to have this entity that is called the United Kingdom, I'm like, cool. So you must have a term to refer to yourselves collectively, right? And even if it's something weird like royal subjects, I'm like, all right, I can get that.
Right? I suggest you float that one past the Scottish and see how they feel about that one.
No. Yeah. Well, even the British. I mean, like the monarchy is not. The monarchy is the basis of our government, but it's not. We respect the Queen, but we don't defer to her. And I think it's the same way over there. A lot of Britons will tell you that they don't like the monarchy too. I'm sure there are anti-monarchists within Britain as well, even though it's constitutionally illegal for us to say anything bad about her, right? Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of weird, but and you know, like to extend that to the other parts of Europe, which you were asking about too, like the French would say français, you know, like I don't know what they would say individually, right? But it's not like the United States of America where you are united, right? You got to remember that like
united.
Like you just said, United Kingdom or Great Britain, those are people that were defeated many years ago and thrown under a king, you know. So there's a lot of resentments that are still there, you know, in the Irish and the Welsh and the in the Scottish, right?
That makes sense why they would lack a unifying term for their arrangement.
It honestly, Jaime, the best thing, and you'll know this better than I think we do, Texans refer to themselves as Texans before they refer to themselves as Americans.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the exact same thing for the Scottish and the Irish and the Welsh.
Yeah.
It's that first and the other second.
Yeah, and I can tell you that when I went to work in Vancouver, you know, unconsciously I kept referring to how wonderful Toronto was, right? To the point where they say, go back to Toronto if it's so wonderful. And like, I didn't even realize I was like, you know, speaking that way. Right. And in Vancouver, which is funny, like, you know, when I was there, the one experience I came away with after 8 months was we speak the same language. We use the same money, but we're not the same country, you know, like just from the like population and attitude kind of ways. I mean, across the country, people are different, you know, we are Canadians and we're all sort of joined together that way, but we don't go America like you guys do, you know?
Well, but it's a strange thing because states' rights in the United States are very important. And the United States is an actually apt term for the country because each state defines itself as a state very strongly in a way that I'm not sure we do here in Canada for provinces.
We don't say we're Ontarians and we know.
Yeah. And well, and while we certainly do have independent governments for each province, and we certainly do have some different systems and things like that, states' rights are a huge issue of divisiveness against the federal government, whereas here there's a lot more alignment. It's also smaller, like our population's a fraction, right? We have 36 million people.
The United States,
we have 36 million people. You guys have like 280 now, right? Like it's such a huge difference. But
there's less now because of the whole COVID thing, but never mind.
But yeah, we tend to cluster too. Like most of our population is in Ontario, BC, and Quebec.
And we're all along the border. Too.
And we're all along the borderline pretty much. I mean, it gets pretty sparse the further north you get, but
it's the weather too.
But I mean, again, it's funny because you hear all the time, you know, threats from the governors of some of the states where they're like, you know, well, we don't like what you're trying to impose on us, federal government, so therefore we're gonna, you know, take this other action. Whereas here there doesn't seem to be that divisiveness in the same way, that sort of adversarial relationship with the federal government.
Semantics.
Yep. But we look forward to when the northern half of the states all decide to join with us. We welcome our southern neighbors who want to be part of Canada. We figure we're good for at least Oregon, Washington State, you know.
Well, we thought there was a big migration coming, you know, 4 years ago.
There was.
Years ago.
There was. One of the people who works on my team at work, she fled the United States. She and her husband had moved from India to study in America and then had settled there and gotten jobs and were happily going to settle in. And then when the 2016 election happened, they packed their bags and moved to Toronto.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's true. I know a few people who've done that actually.
Yep. Yeah. As I said, we will gleefully take all of your people of color who are educated and happy to come here and settle in and work hard. Like, please, every single one of them, send them here. We will take the brain drain from the United States gleefully. We need talented people. We'll take them.
The trick will be for me to move over, but keep my American salary. So keep working for the American company.
Yeah, you want to keep that American taxation system is what you want to keep.
Yeah,
sure we'll have all these savings. That's socialized sci-fi.
That's it. Think about the money you'd save on the socialized sci-fi.
Do I need to cancel CBS All Access? Oh no, wait. Discovery starts next week, so no, I'm gonna have to wait.
Yeah, you've got.
So all you have to do is get sick, get thrown in, you end up in a hospital bed, and you can catch up on all the sci-fi you want. We'll even let you charge your iPhone in the side table there.
Nice.
All right. Well, until next time.
All
See
right.
you guys later.
See you next week, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's that off button? Oh, here we go. Bye.